Alrighty, monthly trading recap here for the month of January 2022. Starting off the year, of course, on a red note and compiling a lot of red months here in the past few months. But I want to preface this monthly recap again with what I've done with a lot of the past ones too. It feels weird trying to do these monthly recaps because of the state I'm in with the current trading career. And yeah, obviously it's black and white, plain and simple that, hey, you're red. We don't want to be red in this trading career, but of not trying to make that excuse, and especially for this market environment, but it just isn't cut and dry, and it never really is. And each and every single day is its own entity, and that's why I love doing the daily trading recaps, to just dive further in depth to what that specific day offered, to give it more weight and understanding. For it is a day-by-day process, and it's not just a, hey, I'm going to be a day trader, and oh, okay, sweet, now I just all of a sudden make money, flip a switch, it just happens all of a sudden out of nowhere. It is a process, and it's growing each and every single day and adapting, especially to what the market wants to continue to throw at you and how it evolves in the same light. So it is just weird that I don't feel so encouraged. Like, coming into this, I don't feel so encouraged because I just didn't feel so encouraged in the month of January of really anything of the trades that I was doing. There's some morning dumps opportunities, some of that key playbook trade that I like to hit on that morning dump pre-market short setup. A few of those that were coming around and getting our feet back in the water with that, but just pretty slow for what should be, and of course my inference of the lack of really extreme time in the market of being in front of a computer for what the market should be or what the overall sentiment should be. But yeah, just not a lot of opportunity in the small cap sector, OTC sector. Always, of course, opportunity. I say this pretty much every daily trading recap. Always going to be opportunity out there. But is it something that is capitalizable repeatably for my personality? That's really all that matters at the end of the day. For my trading career, does it fit my mold, and am I going to be successful with it on a repeatable basis? And identifying the factors that way, and just continuing to go over the data and learning from those black and white factors that, I want to say, just in normal life that you can hold yourself accountable to, of, hey, did you do this bench press rep or not? Like, did you do this pull up or not? Like, things like that along that of, it's black and white, cut and dry of, did you make money or not? And then in this realm of trading, especially where I'm at right now, it isn't that cut and dry. And of course it's a red month, and I'm repeating myself, cycling again, but it is a learning process, and it's filling the knowledge bank versus the P&L bank, and it's adjusting to the market environment, and it's learning more about myself even at the end of the day, more than it is about the market or the overall SPY or the NASDAQ. So a little long-winded introduction there. I'm going to get right into the data to start this off, and then go over some journal notes that I had. Just keep it very nice and brief. Data entry points for me as of right now, 35% win rate on that month of January, factoring in all of paper trades, all of shorting account, margin account, and cash account, factoring in the stupid millisecond or very short trades that were in there that were just kind of a little guessing, or I wouldn't even quantify them as I was in them as real trades, but just putting them in the book as the same thing. Of still hitting a 35% win rate. That is a drop, I think, from last month, and of course I want to push that more. But factoring that in, of average loser, we were taking a 4% loss, and average winner, we were taking a 6.5% win. Like that, I'm in the profit side on the winners, or in the overbalance side on the winners as compared to the losers, but obviously would like to increase that R over R, especially along with the win rate as well, to push us to profitability, because that's just mathematics. This is how it works. That is the black and white key factor to getting us to profitability. Going more to that of just what I feel on the lessons of that, but that's another point of. Okay, let's go into best win rate. My best win rate was on Tuesdays at 43%. That was I actually traded. It's funny to see that I was cascading down in the number of trades on each day of the week from Monday to Friday. So traded the most on Monday, traded the least on Friday, but still also I was having this struggle bit with Fridays of just having a very crappy win rate and just taking some stupid little paper cut losses, but increasing my win rate there on Friday, getting that to 80% win rate for this month. For setups, trading the second day play and the first day plays the most, both of those with similar win rates at 30%, and my best setup was the morning dump at a 50% win rate for the few opportunities that were out there. And third day plays, I had 37% win rate on those, for just some kind of raw data, just throwing myself out and keeping myself accountable as reference to be able to look back on in the future. Some journal notes now we can go into now. This month's goal for me that I wanted to strive for with each and every single trade, or with just each and every day of the market, was put in the work necessary. Keeping that kind of a broad spectrum, but as I'll allude to when I go into next month's goal here a little bit, but it is that line between hard work and the work that's actually necessary to be successful, because I fell into that lie very easily. Not necessarily a lie, but a just fallacy that, all of a sudden, if you work hard, if you look like you're doing things, if you're just kind of treading water, you'll look like you're going forward. And I got a lot of praise and adulation for that, whether it was my coaches or parents or friends of, oh yeah, he's a hard worker. He's one of the hardest workers I know. He puts in that time and that effort. But that was all the reward I got. And at the end of the day, that's kind of what the trap I fell into was. That was the praise that I was going towards. And once I received that, then it was like, oh, sweet. Yeah, that's very nice. And then I would just continue to do that and then get the same kind of thing. And it was just this little cycle of, oh yeah, very nice. He's a very hard worker. He just continues to do these things. He's gotten some bad breaks so far, but oh yeah, he's a great worker. But it just never propelled me in the way that I thought it should, versus actually putting in the work that was necessary in order to get me successful. And I'm relating this all to the field of baseball, where I came from, but learning a lot, unfortunately, from the late and great Kobe Bryant, of all these stories we get to hear now of the Black Mamba, just of his literal insane work ethic, of the work that is the definition of the work that was necessary in order to be successful. He was an incredible athlete. He didn't need to do all the insane stuff that he was doing. It's just the type of workouts and work ethic that he had for himself. But that's what it took in order to push him harder and become one of the greatest of all time. So that is the mindset that I've now had to shift myself to, and that I've had to learn outside of my baseball career now, and look to apply this to my training career. Of there is a fine line, but there is definitely a line between hard work and the work necessary in order to be successful. And there is no applause, there is no adulation from anybody else, or anybody that's really seeing any of the hard work that I would be doing if that's the same type of mentality that I was carrying with this attitude, with these videos, or with anything that I'm doing. There is none of that. And that's kind of forcing me to understand that you can just continue to do that be that same type of person that, just stays late at practice, comes early, puts in that hard work, but it doesn't make a difference. Like, you're just going to continue to be the same person. And there's really going to be no upside to doing that hard work, of the adulation from your friends, from your coaches, and that aspect, that reward of it. That's just such a false and skimpy reward. This is now forcing me entirely to say, gosh, yeah, I know I'm putting in the hard work, but it's going to take more, and it's going to have to push me harder and harder until it reaches that point of, okay, now we're at profitability, and now we can rev it up even more and leverage ourselves figuratively up even more that way into expanding ourselves and our trading career. Yeah. So going more on journal notes, that was this month's goal of putting in the work necessary. I feel I was holding myself pretty accountable to that. That's, of course, a little bit of a broad goal and not necessarily applicable to each trade, but definitely a lesson in just myself of growing as a person, and then using that to apply to this trading career. And especially when the market was so slow and just not providing a huge amount of opportunities, holding myself accountable more to an external goal, maybe you could call it that way, I think was more beneficial. And I'm glad I took it that route for this month of January. So I also wanted to highlight and go over the 18th of this month on two specific trades that I was hammering hard for the morning dump strategy, specifically CELU and Neuro. CELU here, let's go on a perspective. Very nice, beautiful morning dump setup that I was able to nail pretty nicely. Got a little bit chasey, I believe, with my entry, but certainly a heck of a lot more room in market hours, especially for the backside of this very playbook and repeatable strategy that I found, dating that back to summer of last year, and using that repeatedly for a few months, and then it kind of dying off and started to show itself a little bit here in the month of January. But then again, now as we're at the end of the month, breaking into the start of February, it's been the same thing of it dumping off a little bit as well. But nailing this one nicely. And then in the same day, looking at Neuro pop up, which was a little bit of a lower float, kind of a little bit of different of circumstances for this type of ticker, former runner with a huge parabolic move here that was back in, is this August? 7? It's August, whatever that month is, of 7. And then, having to take that one on the chin of Was it the little bit of a hot streak, the hot hand that you just push money and you just push buttons and you make money in the market, right? Of going into neuro, of seeing the same type of thing and saying, having to deal with those factors. Okay, I see you and identify you. Should I press my luck? I mean, this is kind of fitting that mold that I want to see. I could identify some factors that would keep me a little bit leery. Obviously, in hindsight, it's spiking hard against me is a big factor, but the low floaterness of just the different news catalysts, it's a little bit closer to market open. Do I really feel it has enough time? It's not that big of a percentage move of a spike up against that news catalyst for anything to come down against it. Just play the downside there off of that perk. A lot of little different things like that I could have hitched myself on, but it ended up being the circumstance that, taking 2 losses on it ended up putting me negative on the day after a very nice, beautiful win to start it off in pre-market. So I looked at it as a fine-tuning of the strategy of the morning dump to say, okay, this is one day. I'm not going to make $1 million today. Was a great start with that first trade, and I was sitting beautiful, telling my parents, oh yeah, great. I started off with a great, nice little trade there, and feeling high and mighty, but then sure enough, the market can turn your perspective on a dime, and definitely radically changed my whole perspective on, okay, wow. It wasn't just going to be a nice, beautiful, sit back and relax green day. Now we're in the hole. But I think having that green trade to start it off allowed me to take a little bit better of a perspective and ease my ego a little bit. I would never like to trade with the ego, but even through that, just to pad it a little bit to say, hey, I did have a nice win before this, but we got a little bit maybe gung-ho with this trade, and I wasn't, it did go all the way to 7-4, but I think my trades, going back to the daily trading recap, I was out far before that, even breaking the high of day here at $6 in pre-market, out way before that as a short. But either way of dealing with that reality that if you're feeling high and mighty, this too shall pass. If you're feeling low in the dirt and just like you just have zero idea what the stock market is going to do, this too shall pass. And using this day as a great indicator of, even though it was a harder red day, it's one step closer to a beautiful, awesome trade the next day. And using each of these little stepping stones to continue to build this pyramid of my trading career and maintaining that perspective in everything and not just trying to force myself to be green at the end of the day, which I feel has just torn me apart so much in the past. So using this day of the 18th of January here as a day of reflection and perspective gaining on that knowledge bank as compared to just trying to get something in the P&L bank. And I feel like it's really been producing me more success, just even as a person, like I mentioned a lot, I allude to that a lot. But I feel it also will build that P&L bank a heck of a lot more later than trying to force those types of trades now. So I wanted to mention that one. Going back to the spot here, just for the other references. On my journal here, I believe Huddy mentioned in the chat at one point, this may have been somebody else, but saying something along the lines of, there is a difference between letting a trade actually start to confirm itself before getting the entry, let it become more probable of a trade. Difference between that and then chasing, which I found myself in a lot of different circumstances of chasing when the end of the move was already pretty much there. And I can, and then going on top of that of, the vice versa flip side of that is there's the anticipation of a trade with a very less probable of an entry, and comparing that to just throwing money into the wind, thinking that you're swinging or you're getting a very speculative trade, and then, the difference between that and an anticipatory, less probable percentage point of a trade happening from your entry. So those two ways of entering a trade or being inside of a trade, riding that fine line of, okay, what is the actual, what am I doing here, to break it down in its simplest form. And I felt I did that a lot related to that first example I gave of the chasing, because of breaking it down to the individual trade itself. It just was not that most awesome of a trade. So getting into that point of, okay, well, I'm going to wait till it actually has or shows some signs of legs before I get in the trade. And okay, sweet, now it's showing some signs. Oh, well, that was the top of the trade. Now I'm having to bag hold it or just cut myself short, sell myself as it's breaking against me, as I just got totally played like a fiddle on this stupid trade. And like, okay, well, either I should be more anticipatory with that trade and be selling into that. Obviously, it wasn't that awesome of a move, so maybe now I need to be anticipatory, like I alluded to with that second example. but then it becomes an even less probable of a trade, and how many of those charts end up just being fizzling nothing mental capital wasters versus the other types of trades that what am I really going for or retaining for? 2%, 3%? Am I a scalper? Was that the type of trade I was initially looking for anyway? Fine-tuning myself more and more that way and outlining, gosh, that's just not who I want to be. And taking these little stupid losers is just so mind-numbingly boring and just death upon me as a trader, and makes it just very tough to even want to put in more work on those types of chart patterns, because it's like, well, what's going to be the end reward here? I'm going to make out with a 1 out of every 10 hit rate that becomes a 5% possible profit opportunity off of there. I got to be looking at something else. So just aligning our perspective, realizing the reality of that situation, and aligning ourselves alongside of that. That alludes into the second point after that of, man, right at the end of this month here, I was just going in again with these little like $200 size trades, trying to go in and out, doing more blanket ones instead of maybe going paper. When I'm trading a $200 position size, it might as well be paper. It's not like I'm trading a huge account size, but for the trades that I want to or should be taking, I can't be doing a $200 position size, not even $100, not even, $300, $400, $500 position size, because it might as well should be paper. Because certainly the wins on those aren't adding to the P&L bank. Oh, great, we took a $200 trade and made $20. Yeah, for when my actual trades come through and I end up having to take a loss on whatever my hit rate is for that playbook trade, then it becomes, that $200 loss, $250 loss. And what was the point of taking that little win on a stupid speculative position size of $200 when it wasn't really even building anything for me anyway? It just might as well have been paper, because the knowledge I was gaining from that trade would have been the same having been fake money versus just a super small, incredibly small position size. And now going into this market where it's just lackluster plays all around, and I'm using the perspective that, okay, because it is a lackluster market environment and I don't feel the trades are repeatable or are there, then I'm just going to size down my position size and just proceed with caution, but just not go crazy gung-ho. Now I'm just taking paper cups left and right, because now I'm convincing myself it's small size. I'm still in the trade experiencing it because I'm actually in the trade and learning more than the actual paper. I'm getting that emotional aspect of it too. No, I'm completely done with that. It's just got to be, those paper cuts add up so small over time that it's death by 1,000 paper cuts is the best analogy that I know how to use for that. And it's got to be the mentality shift now that I can't really be even taking these trades unless it is so convicted in my mind in order to take $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 position size on that trade. Because then that's how I just got to leverage myself for where I'm at with this small account trading system. And I'll allude to a little bit later for the conclusion of, that's why we're going into a little bit more of a futures on the overall market, because now not only can we use the leverage of the market itself, but let's look into opportunities to break ourselves down for a just total risk-reward basis that normally we'd be operating under totally sketchy, just weird and inconsistent market environment here for this month of January. Then throwing on top of that my stupid and inconsistent just weirdness of where am I going with that? Of just trying to think that I'm actually doing something. Again, treading water, thinking that I'm swimming forward. It's just not helping anybody. It's really all I wanted to go with on that one. And those are really all the notes I had on my journal. And then now alluding to this next month of February's goal, taking another step on top of where January's goal was of putting in the work necessary. Now this month of February, it's putting in the work necessary in order to be successful. Alluding to that same point I made earlier, there is a difference between hard work and the work in order it takes to be successful. And we've definitely got to ride that line harder and take with the reality and come to these daily trading recaps and say, okay, was today's actions making us a more successful person for tomorrow? Or did we just come to the market today and say, oh, woe is me. There's no small cap movers. There's no OTC movers. There's no awesome opportunities today. We're playing it smart. We're not trying to force anything because there's no place there. Or are we going where the money is? If there's just no opportunity or money there to be made, are we actually studying the hot market where there is money to be made? Because is that the perspective that we're keeping in mind of, okay, we're not trading today because we're saving that capital and that mental capital for when the hot market comes. Okay, then are we trading and learning from the webinars that happened in the hot market? Are we looking at the charts that happened in the hot market? Are we kind of distancing ourselves away from this because we've said we're not going to really trade it, getting away from that $200 position size, again, those stupid little real trades? And are we focusing more on when it is time to capitalize? And that's what I'm going to hold myself accountable to for this month of February, is putting in the work necessarily in order to be successful, but also dealing in that reality of what are we trying to do today? What is the goal, not only for today, but how does that apply to this month? How does that apply to the rest of this year? How does that apply to this trading career? I'm being more open and perspective-minded with that in each and every single morning, and each and every single reflection on that daily trading recap as well. So that is really all I had, keeping it a little bit shorter than I do most of these little monthly recaps. And again, similar thing that I said in the beginning of this introduction, that these monthly recaps, I just find myself in this weird situation that I don't want to do them because it is just a little bit of a hitch up, that it's like, oh, well, this month of January, I can't really say this was a thing because it was just weird and I wasn't really trying to force trades and I didn't find anything really to capitalize on. So, you can't really regard this as a month of trading. But again, going to the black and white example, but this was a month of trading. I try to push things under the rug and say, well, it's not really, like, you can't say that I should have made money because I'm still early in my trading career. And, this month there wasn't really any crazy opportunities, but you were in front of a computer screen. What did you learn? What was to be gained from that? The P&L loss from the time in front of the computer screen. And that's a factor that I think I'm missing, that I've been missing this month and missing a lot in this trading career, of kind of getting a little bit too lackadaisical with the stepping away from the computer screen. And it's just hard all around. And to put it into words, I don't feel I have the greatest of context as of yet to really conceptualize what I'm saying with that. But I do feel that there's still another layer, and sure enough, I'm feeling I'm going to find another layer under that when I do start to reveal that more and more in me. There is another layer in me of putting more focus and emphasis on what are we doing today and where is it going to take us tomorrow, and outlining that on a clearer perspective. So that is where we're at. I sincerely thank you guys for watching this monthly recap. We will catch you guys next time.